Hi, everyone. I want to start by asking you, which of these two faces do you think is more likable? So take maybe 5 seconds to survey the faces and determine which you think is more likable. How about now? I also want you to consider, did those labels change your decision? And if so, why? Well, this is an example of the evaluation I studied. Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline Malloy, and I'm a psychology student here at UNCG. And I research how group membership, like political affiliation, affects the positive relationship between facial trustworthiness and likability evaluations. So first, I'm going to tell you a bit about facial trustworthiness and its relationship to likability. So when making first impressions, we automatically evaluate faces for trustworthiness because it tells us if we should approach or avoid a person, or even how likable we might perceive them to be. In fact, highly trustworthy faces are evaluated to be likable, and untrustworthy faces are considered to be unlikable. And defendants who appear more trustworthy in court cases even receive more lenient sentences for serious crimes because they look trustworthy. So there's definitely a positive relationship between facial trustworthiness and likability, but I speculate the group membership might affect this relationship. So group membership, like race or political affiliation, gives us a sense of self, and it actually helps us to determine who we are and aren't alike. It also leads to things like bias and prejudice, unfortunately. But concerning facial evaluations, the researchers, Lazarus et al., actually found that people thought the fearful faces of in-group members were more positive than the happy faces of out-group members. Also, another study found people perceive trustworthy faces to be in-group members and untrustworthy faces to be out-group members. Political affiliation is just one form of group membership that really leads to in-group favoritism and dislike towards the out-group. Now, this is considered to be more acceptable than biased opinions that are fueled by race or gender. But important to this study, Iyengar and Westwood found in 2015, actually, that random faces were later evaluated to be more likable than the participant to be more likable after the participant discovered they shared the same affiliation. So, due to the importance of group membership to our social identity, I questioned how does political affiliation affect this positive relationship I described between likability and facial trustworthiness. So, my question in the prior research led me to two hypotheses. First, that in-group partisan would strengthen the relationship such that likability evaluations would be higher, regardless of trustworthiness, and that out-group partisanship would make likability evaluations lower. Next, I predicted that very trustworthy in-group faces would have an additive effect on evaluations so that likability would be extremely high. When it comes to supporting those hypotheses, I created a qualtrics study or survey rather, using white male faces that range from very trustworthy to untrustworthy in appearance and asked participants to rate how likable they perceive them to be. I also rated or asked my participants about their political affiliation and their viewpoints. To analyze my data, I ran a model entering facial trustworthiness, group information, and political ideology, and all of their interactions as fixed effects. So, in support of my first hypothesis, very conservative and very liberal participants evaluated in group members to be more likable than out group members. And you can see this depicted on the very conservative and very liberal sections on this graph. So, for example, in the very conservative graph, the Republican line is above the non line, and the no information line is above the Democrat line. This tells us that conservatives are favoring in group members over out group members when it comes to evaluating the likability of faces. But in support of my second hypothesis, there was a three-way interaction between my independent variables that provided us with a stronger or weaker positive relationship, such that in-group partisanship strengthened it and out-group partisanship weakened it. Concerning conservatives, people who were very conservative found faces of their parties to be way higher in likability than moderate conservatives. Um, but we didn't see this for Democrats or the no information faces. Surprisingly, there actually was a bigger difference in likability for moderate and very conservative than it was between in-group and no-group faces, yet not for moderate and very liberals. Liberals, in fact, liked in-group faces way more than no information faces. So overall, it seems liberals have a greater in-group additive effect on likability than conservatives. But overall, the findings suggest that group membership is a cue that affects facial evaluations, not just the structure or the appearance of the face itself. And actually, I speculate that our findings also suggest that the additive effect we found is due to in-group inclusion and group reputation tendencies people have that might suggest we evaluate highly trustworthy in-group faces to be extremely likable because of thoughts that in-group membership alludes to positive traits such as likability and existing knowledge that if quote unquote model in-group members or those with very trustworthy faces aren't evaluated favorably, that negatively affects evaluations about the group as a whole. But now, regarding the limitations, we understand that using white male faces and political affiliation limits our generalizability because we only use one race and one form of group membership, which happens to be extremely salient. So, future studies should incorporate faces of other races to view the intersection and implications of more than one group construct. Also, future studies should research these effects with arbitrary groups to see if these effects are true for both salient and arbitrary groups. But that concludes my presentation. So thank you